Hello, I'm WWE superstar Titus O'Neil, and today I'm coming to you as a neighbor. You owe it to yourself and those you love to get tested now. Get the care you need and protect your family. Hillsborough County is offering free coronavirus testing and no health insurance is needed. It costs you nothing to get tested. Visit hcflgov.net/staysafe for more information and have a reservation made today. Share this with a neighbor, and let's come together as a community and keep fighting to get through this. Together, we will come back stronger. God bless.
Sunshine, blue skies, and friendly faces are why so many people love to call Hillsborough County home. It's all part of what makes Hillsborough County a great place to live, work, and play. But our wonderful weather comes with potential risks, so it's extremely important to always be prepared. If you have to leave your home, emergency management leaders recommend evacuating tens of miles, not hundreds, to a hotel or to a friend or family member's house. That preparedness also includes having a disaster kit ready to go at all times. Your kit should have essentials like water. Consider options like 5 or 10-year shelf life water. Food that doesn't need refrigeration. Think canned food, granola bars, peanut butter, and trail mix. A change of clothes and closed-toed shoes. A 2-week supply of medications with an updated list of dosages and important phone numbers. Important documents including driver's licenses, insurance policies, and health records. You can keep things digital by taking photos of your documents and saving them to a cloud-based application or on USB drives. Speaking of electronics, your kit should have a battery-powered radio and flashlight, as well as extra chargers and spare batteries for your devices. Consider solar-powered or crank-operated chargers. A first aid kit, a whistle, and cash in small bills. If you have young children, be sure to pack formula, clothing, and diapers. Be sure to plan for every disaster. Your kit should always include hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, gloves, and cloth face coverings, along with personal hygiene items like toothbrushes and deodorant. Once your disaster kit is complete, keep it in a designated place in case you have to leave your home quickly. Make sure every member of your family knows where it's located. If you have to leave your home for any emergency, the health and safety of your family and others around you is imperative. Most items will last for long periods of time, but be sure to pay attention to expiration dates and replace expired items as needed. Keep a copy of your family disaster plan with your kit so you always know what you need. We encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/staysafe for the latest updates and information, and to sign up for the HCFL alert system.
This is a battle we've never faced in my lifetime. I want to tell you about 416 of the most amazing people. Every day I get to see their skill, professionalism, and dedication. Their commitment to protect and improve the health of everyone in Hillsborough County. The last 2 months, they've been on the front line of a battle with a very dangerous enemy, COVID-19. And they've risen to the challenge in the most amazing, heroic way. Everyone has contributed, sacrificing their personal life, which they put on hold. They're making a difference for everyone they help And every day I get stopped and told just how amazing they are. I'm proud and blessed to work with them, my second family.
Hi, I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner Les Miller. We're going through an unprecedented crisis as we navigate the COVID-19 pandemic. I understand your challenges, and I'm sympathize with the difficulties many of you are facing during this time. Hurricane season started on June 1st. It is important that you plan, prepare, and stay safe. This year, experts are predicting 40% more storm activity than a typical hurricane season. When a storm is identified, it's important to stay tuned to your radio or television and listen to local authorities. Stock your home and vehicle with emergency supplies and make plans in advance to protect people with special needs and pets. If evacuation orders are called, heed the warnings and follow special instructions related to sheltering during COVID-19 pandemic. I encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/stay-safe for information on disaster planning, evacuation zones, shelters, and more. Make sure you and your family plan, prepare, and stay safe.
Hillsborough County, along with local and federal health experts, are encouraging residents to wear cloth face masks to cover their nose and mouth when in public to help stop the spread of COVID-19. There are not enough surgical face masks for everyone, and available ones should go to healthcare workers and first responders. It's easy to make your own face mask out of common household items. The CDC and U.S. Surgeon General say you can use an old scarf, bandana, or make one using a t-shirt plus 2 rubber bands. Cut part of the t-shirt into a square, fold it from the bottom to the middle, then from the middle to the top. Repeat those steps one more time, then add a rubber band to each side. Bring each end to the middle, then secure around your face. They should fit snugly but comfortably. Cloth face coverings should not be placed on children younger than 2 years of age or people who have trouble breathing. The CDC emphasizes that while wearing a face mask, you should still practice social distancing, stay 6 feet apart from others, and continue other preventative measures such as frequent hand washing. We encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/stay-safe for up-to-date information. Hillsborough County has teamed up with the Department of Health and other public health and safety agencies to address any impacts the virus may have on our local community. To help prevent the spread of the coronavirus, here are a few tips you should know. Practice proper hand washing by using soap and water and wash for at least 20 seconds. Use alcohol-based hand sanitizer if you cannot wash. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Cough and sneeze into a tissue and throw it away. Clean, high-touch surfaces frequently. Some examples include doorknobs, credit and debit cards, cell phones, keyboard and mouse devices, and toilet handles. Stay home if you're feeling ill. If you have any flu-like symptoms, avoid contact with the public. Avoid sharing personal items in spaces with those close to you. Seek medical care early if you're feeling sick. Symptoms of the coronavirus can include fever, coughing, and shortness of breath. Seek medical care if you develop these symptoms or if you've been traveling or have been in close contact with a person who has traveled from an area with an ongoing spread of COVID-19. We encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/stay-safe for up-to-date information and tips.
This is Dave. Dave doesn't know his home's flood zone and was not able to heed flood warnings. Dave and his home are soaked. This is Noah. Noah is an informed citizen. He was warned in advance about potential flooding in his area. Noah took precautions. Noah is dry.
And I saved the animals too.
Good job, Noah. When it comes to flood warnings, be like Noah, not like Dave. For more information, visit hcfl.gov.net. Be safe, be informed, know your flood zone.
So we were very fortunate to get donations of masks, the cloth mask for our staff to wear. Getting PPE at this time is difficult, and trying to abide by CDC and AVMA guidelines as far as keeping people and pets safe. This was great because half our staff didn't have masks prior to Merciful Project making these masks for us.
I've learned that when you're stressed, the best thing is to do something.
Good morning, and welcome to the Environmental Protection Commission meeting on June 25th. And Commissioner White, our chaplain, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and the invocation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I will ask everyone, if you're able to please stand. And if you can see an image of me, I have a flag behind me. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and then have an invocation. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the clean air we breathe, the clean water that we have to drink and use for other purposes. I thank you for our clean bay and for our beautiful and functional wetlands. I also thank you, Lord, for the roof over our head made possible by the building industry, the food on our table made possible by the agricultural industry, and the various industry that allows us to make livings for our family. And I pray this morning, Lord, that you will guide this board, our staff and stakeholders as we make decisions that keep all of these things in the appropriate balance. As always, I pray for members of our armed forces and first responders, that you will bless them, comfort them, guide them, and keep them safe each and every day. And I ask for all of these blessings in your heavenly name. Amen.
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 Thank you, Commissioner White. So if Ms. Doherty, at this point, I would ask you if we have any changes to the agenda, any changes to the consent agenda?
Excuse me,
No,
Madam
ma'am.
Chair, could I do a roll call, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Smith,
Here.
Hagan,
Here.
Kemp,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Merman,
Here.
Overman,
Here.
White.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Great. So now, Ms. Doherty, any changes to the agenda?
Commissioner, there are no changes to the agenda.
All right. Then we will move on and we'll move on to the recognitions and proclamations. And that's you as well, Ms. Doherty.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. If James Brewer would bring up our first slide. Thank you, Commissioners. We're here today to honor Marcia Reese. She has 35 years of dedicated service to the agency and has spent most of her career in the water division. And so at this time, I'd like to recognize Sam El-Rabi, our Director of Water, to say a few words about Marcia.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sam El-Rabi, EPC staff, and this is a special recognition. It is with great pleasure that we recognize and honor one of EPC's great employees, Marcia Reese, who retired after 35 years of dedicated service to our agency and the citizens of Hillsborough County. Marcia started with us at EPC back in 1985, working in various departments and divisions, but she spent most of her career with the water division as an administrative specialist. Marcia exemplifies the spirit of EPC family we always talk about. Throughout her career at EPC, Marcia has always supported our family with a smile and eagerness to serve however she could. We really enjoyed working with Marcia as a team over the last 3.5 decades. She has made such a difference with her constant optimism, enthusiasm, and willingness to assist. It is clear that Marcia's dedication to our customers has made a positive impact on our agency. On behalf of the APC family, we wish Marcia all the best in retirement. We hope she has a long and peaceful rest, spending time with loved ones and enjoying everything she wants to do with her time off. All the best to you, Marcia, on a well-deserved retirement, and thank you for 35 years of continuous hard work and outstanding service. We love you and miss you.
And that is beautiful.
Yeah.
35 years.
That is certainly amazing dedication. And with that, I'd like to move to the next slide because for long-term employees, we honor them with an EPC Lifetime Achievement Award for appreciation for their many years of service. Marcia retired in the spring, and this features our EPC Heron that is also on our website. And the award reads, "Thank you for your dedicated service to EPC and the citizens of Hillsborough County. You are loved and we will miss you, your EPC family, June 25th, 2020. We've presented some cards and some gifts to Marcia. And unfortunately, we normally have a celebration luncheon, but with the current situation, we weren't able to do that. But my understanding is that Marcia contacted Sam and wanted Sam to read some words into the record from her. I think yesterday evening she contacted him. So Sam, will you read those words?
Yes, ma'am. Last night, Marcia texted me and asked me if it is possible to read the following into the record and for the commissioners to hear. He says, "I'd like to thank Hillsborough County government for allowing me the opportunity to have a lengthy and satisfying career of 35 years. I was able to raise my family and provide for my retirement during that time. I worked with many outstanding people and was blessed to have had several kind and understanding bosses over the years. As I look back, I wouldn't change a thing. Thank you all very much. That's it.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Marcia. We love you and we will miss you, but we'll see you again in the future, hopefully sooner than later. And with that, I didn't know if there were any comments that needed to be made. If not, I'll move on to my next slide.
I see none at this time. I would just speak on behalf of the board and say 35 years is a distinguished career, and our EPC staff has always been a great family of hardworking, dedicated people, and we're glad to see Marcia move on to this next stage in her future.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Move on to the next commendation, a very, very special recognition today.
Yes, James, if you'll go to the next slide. Our next recognition is for Terrell Sessoms, and I would like to say a few words in memory of him and express how sad we were to learn that he passed away on June 6th. His visionary legislation in 1967, while serving in the Florida legislature, resulted in the establishment of the Environmental Protection Commission. It was our privilege to honor him at our 50th celebration and induct him into the Executive Director's Environmental Hall of Fame in 2017. We are grateful not only to have known him personally, but to be here today, carrying on the important legacy he began in Hillsborough County over 50 years ago. I admire him for the great leader and mentor he was to me and so many others in the community. He will be missed by EPC in our community, and our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. He is a legend. He will always be a part of us, and we will carry on his mission and vision. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. I see a couple of commissioners have their hands raised. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I'm so glad this is happening. I wanted to do this at the Florida County Commission level as well, but I wanted to share with you, Mr. Sessoms was one of the first persons that I met in leadership when I moved to Hillsborough County. And his passion and leadership and courage was impressive. And when he heard that I was thinking about running for office, he requested a meeting just to kind of feel me out. And his guidance and wisdom has blessed Hillsborough County in so many different ways. And Janet, I really thank you for bringing this forward. We lost a great leader who continued to lead even in his retirement. And like I said, we've all been blessed in Hillsborough County by having such a strong, passionate leader that stepped forward and served our county and our state quite well. So I just wanted to make sure that that got said. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Merman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have so much emotion over Terrell because he was such a mentor to me when I was elected to the legislature. He was always there for me to help on education policy, especially education. He was very, very involved with educating our kids. He cared so much about children. And that's how we got to be friends over the years. And I was just, I'm going to greatly miss him. He was a superb legislator for our state, for our county, and always represented our interests very well in Tallahassee. And he's going to be missed by many. There will be a void from his loss. It's a sad time for a lot of us. And I was very good friends with his wife who passed away. I think it was last year or the year before. So anyway, we're all, I'm glad you brought this forward today, Janet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Yes, I just Also wanted to give my great regards to Terrell Sessoms. He was a giant and a real leader, and I'm glad that we were able to recognize him in such a substantial way before he left us just recently. But also remembering Eva Sessoms, Terrell, and also to his family members, his children, and to Mickey Castor, some good friends, as he left us. But boy, did he leave us with such an environmental and every other legacy of leadership, and really changed what has happened here in Tampa Bay. So
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, you'll need to speak up a little bit. Were you finished?
yes, I am finished.
Thank you. You'll need to speak up a little bit in the next time. And I too, I see no other hands raised. If you all will take your hands down when you're done. But I too want to just express that we owe a great debt of gratitude to Terrell Sessoms. He was a great leader, and certainly, as Commissioner Merman indicated, in our education system and our universities, also in several other areas. And it's really appropriate that we honor him here at EPC, as Mr. Sessoms sponsored the state legislation that created EPC in 1967. And in our EPC 50th anniversary video, he kicks it off with a story of himself sailing into Tampa Bay, but being afraid to get into the water since the water was so polluted. And, anybody who was around Tampa Bay back then can remember those days. But he was motivated to do something about it and do something big in establishing this agency to protect our wetlands and our environment. And it has been very successful, as we all know, but certainly in large part due to Mr. Sessoms' vision. And like Kimberly, like Commissioner Overman, I too was grateful for his support. I mean, he stayed active all throughout his retirement in nurturing, mentoring leaders, and he will be missed in the whole fabric of our leadership in Tampa Bay. So thank you, Janet, for bringing that forward. Seeing no other hands, we can move on to the let's see, the public comment. We'll just announce that we have no public comment today for this meeting, and ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Commissioner White.
Commissioner White moved to adopt, and Commissioner Merman second. Let's have a roll call vote.
Smith?
Yes.
Hagan?
Yes.
Kemp? Commissioner Kemp? Miller?
Yes.
Merman?
Yes.
Overman?
Yes. And Commissioner Kemp did say mouth yes, but we could not hear her.
Okay. So Commissioner Kemp is a yes vote. And White?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, we're not hearing you. Yep, if somebody could help her. We did hear you when you did not have the headset on, but you just weren't very loud. Maybe you just speak up. I'll just hope. let you work on that and move on to our first item on the regular agenda then. And Janet, that is you, Clean Air Month.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Every year we have the Clean Air Fair down at Poe Plaza. It happens in May during Clean Air Month. Unfortunately, again, this year that event had to be canceled, but we ended up hosting the photography contest. And so I'd like to bring Michelle Jenkins, our sustainability coordinator, forward just to talk about the winners and some of the honorable mentions. Michelle?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'll share my presentation now. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, normally at this time of year, we would come before the Commission to share all of the fun and exciting activities that staff has performed throughout the month of May in honor of Clean Air Month. But unfortunately, this May was like no other, and due to the COVID pandemic, many of those outreach activities had to be canceled, but not all of them. We were determined to be resilient and to adapt to the circumstance and virtually engage to promote the importance of clean air and a healthy environment. This was our 19th annual Clean Air Month, and at the start of that tradition every year is the development of a new theme. Our goal is always to make it festive and to stay current with the times. So this year we decided to recognize the very special golden 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And we came up with a tagline, "It's an Earth Day birthday." And at the Clean Air Fair, we had planned to make it a party and once again celebrate the importance of a healthy environment. As you can see from past photos, every year is a celebration of its own. Over the last 18 years, the Clean Air Fair has grown into a buzzing downtown event with 1,000+ visitors, attending to learn more about some of the great work that EPC, Hillsborough County, and our community partners are doing. While strolling through the plaza with over 60 exhibitors, our guests get to enjoy live music, free giveaways, and of course, a photo booth, where everyone can have a little fun, feel connected, and
earphones, speakers,
with some party hats or don a cape and mask as an environmental superhero.
at headphones.
Without question, our success is due to our partnerships. And since we weren't able to host the fair and capture all of our incredible partners while engaging with the community, we wanted to recognize them in another way. So we created an electronic card and entitled it Clean Air Fair 2020, Missed but Not Forgotten. And we asked our partners to sign the card, to offer a birthday wish, or to tell us why they value the environment to their organization. And we were thrilled with the responses. Here are a few of the first signatures that we received. We are creating a slideshow that we'll post on our website with all of the signatures and their logos. While the Clean Air Fair had to be canceled, one element we were very honored to be able to continue was the Clean Air Month Environmental Photo Contest, which is open to local high schools and middle school students. We traditionally showcase the contest winners and the honorable mentions in County Center Lobby, the EPC lobby, and at the Clean Air Fair, as you can see in these photos. But since we weren't able to display their photos in person, we wanted to share their great work of the honorable mentions and the contest winners with you here today. In order to continue the contest this year, we adapted by converting to an all-electronic format. This allowed the students an opportunity to still participate and express their artistic vision, which provided some normalcy during a time of concern and uncertainty. And we are certainly so proud of all of their efforts. All of the winners and the honorable mentions receive a certificate of achievement from EPC. The top 3 photographers also receive a small monetary award, and a donation is made to the winning school's art department. As part of the contest, the students are required to include a brief narrative explaining the motivation of their photo. And these narratives are often an insightful glimpse into the perception of our youth on the future of our environment, as you will see highlighted by our top 3 winners. And for third place, we have Zaria Washington, a senior at Blake High School. Her piece is titled Greatest Love. Zaria wrote, her photo depicts Mother Earth reading a birthday card while sitting on some very beautiful flowers she created herself. The image is supposed to represent a constant circle of love for Earth by Earth. We think Zaria did a wonderful job illustrating some of the vibrant beauty created by nature. Our second place winner is Courtney Sims, a senior at Bloomingdale High School, and her piece is titled Earth Under Quarantine. Courtney combines the state of the country with our theme and compellingly writes, Earth Day's birthday is being spent indoors rather than with the world outside, as it should be. However, because of this, air pollution has gone down. Our rivers and other bodies of water are cleaning up, and our Earth is slowly recovering. So while Earth may be missing its party outside, the gift of a cleaner world is waiting as soon as the pandemic is over. And we are very excited to announce our first place winner is Jolena Jasperson, a junior at Blake High School. Her piece is titled We Grow Together, and she writes, plants play a critical role in our ecosystem and in fighting climate change. My piece features a flower growing from a globe, which symbolizes how important plants are to our environment. Every part of the earth goes into the process of creating a plant, from the soil to the water and everything in between. Plants truly do make the world turn. Jolena did a fabulous job combining those dynamic elements into an expressive photo that speaks volumes. And finally, I mentioned earlier about how incredibly important our partners are to us and our success. But truly, that success would not be possible without the leadership and the guidance of our division directors, our executive director, Janet Dougherty, and of this EPC commission. So from our Clean Air Month Planning Committee to you all, we say, thank you so much for all of your support, and we look forward to seeing you next year.
Thank you so much for that report and presentation. And it's really comforting to see that EPC is still doing everything we can to continue involving the community in the environment and involving these young people who will be our next environmental leaders and citizens, and continuing that on even during this time when it's practically difficult. So I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Our next report is environmental legislation, and that I believe is Mr. Marati.
That is correct.
I'm starting to share my screen. Good morning, Commissioners. Rick Marati with the EPC Legal Department. Just going to give you a legislative update on some of the bills that passed and failed that we had been talking about in our past few meetings, December through February, that we had discussed them previously. Over 3,500 bills were proposed in this session, and 210 of those passed both the chambers, and the majority now have been delivered to the governor. And by early this week, about half of them had been signed by the governor, but in the past few days, seen a lot more being signed. So that number is going to change rapidly by the end of this week. Here's a few of the ones that we discussed that have passed. House Bill 73, environmental regulation. This is the bill that local governments would have a lot of interest in, because counties and cities now have to renegotiate contracts with recycled material collectors to ensure there's a better definition of contaminated recyclable materials and how to manage those and minimize costs to the collectors. And when we talk about contaminated in that sense, it's more the strings and the plastics that can foul the recycling process. But closer to the EPC's interests are two areas of exemption that we were tracking. One that says local governments can't ask a citizen to provide written proof from the DEP, State Department of Environmental Protection, that they qualify for an exemption. Best example is if they want to build a small dock on a lake that doesn't need any permits, a local government could ask them to prove that they qualify for an exemption because no writing is necessary or no permit is necessary. And then the other exemption of note to us is one that allows a dock repair or replacement, and that exemption already exists, but it got amended this year to allow a little wiggle room, mainly in case of a hurricane or a storm that really could blow away a dock. It allows the citizen to still get an exempt repair or replacement as long as they do it within 5 feet of the old dock. It's really hard to tell, really hard to figure out where the old dock existed if it got destroyed by a storm. So this gives them a little room to still get an exempt dock rebuilt, as long as they don't impact new resources like oyster beds. This bill was one of the few environmental ones that was signed about 2 weeks ago. Moving on to Senate Bill 712, the Water Quality Improvement Bill. This is one that we've been tracking for 2 years. It failed last year, but it passed this year. And this is the one that transfers the septic tank regulatory program from the Department of Health to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. It's part of the governor's package of really attacking nutrient pollution in the state of Florida. They wanted one agency to oversee all of it, and this was a piece of the puzzle that they wanted the DEP to have. And so over the next 2 years, the DEP is going to have to enter into rulemaking to make rules with a little more strength about siting and minimizing pollution from septic tanks. There'll be a technical advisory committee developed to help assist in that rulemaking. You'll hear a little bit about this from Sam El-Rabi in the next presentation, so I won't get into too much detail. This one's been presented to the governor, but as of last night, I did not see that it had got signed yet. Next bill, the Environmental Accountability Bill, House Bill 1091. This is the bill that increases all civil and administrative fines by 50% in statute. And because the EPC is a delegated program, we assess these same fines. So a lot of fines are anywhere from $100 to $10,000, depending on the type of violation it is. They all just go 50%. And unrelated to that, there is a clause in this bill that states that a seller of any property has to disclose a defect of a sanitary sewer lateral line. And when we're talking about the sanitary sewer lateral line, that's the line that runs from the residential property or the commercial property to the street where it connects with the government's sewer line. So there'll be a new disclosure required during the sales if there's a known defect. Two more that passed that we've been tracking was a preemption by the state of regulation of proprietary drugs and cosmetics. The impetus of this was there was a lot of sunscreen regulation going on in South Florida to help protect coral reefs because some sunscreens have been identified that may impact coral reefs. And but the patchwork was not favored by some legislators, so they decided to create a preemption. This one has been presented to the governor, hasn't been signed yet. And then the last one I'm going to talk about that passed is House Bill 549. And this creates a public records exemption that would allow governments not to turn over the location of threatened or endangered species. The idea here is to protect those species from poaching, trespass on people's property if they knew how to get to the species. So this seems like a sound public record exemption. Again, this was presented to the governor, but hasn't been signed yet. And then two, I'll talk about that failed with the brownfields bill that we've been talking about a few times. This, among other things, this one is the one that would have taken away the job creation criteria for a brownfield project if you were going to do affordable housing, parks or conservation. The idea being affordable housing projects and parks or conservation may not on a day-to-day basis have a lot of staff on site. Well, the brownfields program is a job creator, and they want to have jobs created to show that you qualify for the brownfields and the tax incentives and limiting your liability from lawsuits for environmental issues when you take on a brownfields project. But they realized that job creation criteria made it harder to have a brownfield become a park because you don't need many employees on a park. So it was an idea to get rid of that to help incentivize more brownfields on parks and affordable housing. It failed this year, but the Brownfields Association is pretty determined to bring these type of bills back. So hopefully we'll see that again. It seems like a good idea. And then the last one I'll talk about is a public notification of pollution. Right now, the DEP is required to notify via their website, and anyone who signs up for an email system of discharges that are required to be reported by industry. They were proposing to amend that law by saying that any of those forever chemicals we've been hearing about, the PFASs, PFOAs, the ones that are typically with fire retardant foams and the such, they get into waterways. They wanted to have a new reporting criteria that if there was evidence of a release for one of those, there'd be a notice of a mile radius from around that release, and also putting on the website. That bill didn't pass this year, so we'll track it and see if it comes up again next year. And with that, commissioners, those are the topics I wanted to cover. And I'm happy to take any questions. I will quit sharing my screen here.
Thank you, Mr. Marotti. I see no questions. I'm sorry, was that somebody? All right. So then if there's no further questions, we can move on to the next item, and that would be Mr. El Rabi to discuss the septic tank regulation report.
Correct.
Yes, Commissioner. I will be sharing my PowerPoint right now. Okay. Good morning, Commissioner Sam Arabi, EPC staff, and this is a presentation on the septic tank systems, which is called on-site sewage treatment and disposal system. Let me go to the next slide. This presentation about septic tank system regulations and the involvement of various entities in septic tank issues in Hillsborough County, and I will be touching upon also the state of Florida as well. What is a septic tank? A septic system is an on-site sewage treatment and disposal system that is serving a single residence or a small commercial structure. A typical system consists of a septic tank and a drain field on the property. And a septic tank separates the solids from the wastewater, stores the partially decomposed it stores and partially decomposed some of the solids material while allowing the liquid fluid or effluent to go out into the drain field for further clarification and percolation. The septic system always has a subsurface effluent and never on top of the ground. And also it's a closed loop system, and it is not an open tank system. It does not include package plants or other treatment works that are regulated under Florida Statutes 403. This is a summary slide of the entities involved in septic tank issues in Hillsborough County. First is the Department of Health, and Hillsborough County Public Utilities, and EPC. The Department of Health regulates septic tank by state law. They are in charge of regulations of septic tank throughout the state and in Hillsborough County. When we talk about regulations, they're in charge of the permitting, compliance, and enforcement if there are problems of septic tank. They have recently also revised their rules to incorporate technological advances and operational requirements for alternative systems, a little bit more advanced systems. Hillsborough County Public Utilities, they're involved through their proposed septic to sewer conversion program for septic communities within the urban service area. Also, the comp plan requires connections if sewer is available, which is also dependent on the cost. EPC's involvement is practically responding to septic system failure complaints, where the septic system discharges wastewater off-site, off the property, and into conveyances that leads to surface waters. The state DEP and Department of Health will be implementing soon a major changes prescribed by Senate Bill 712, which was passed earlier this year during the legislation session. For regulations and specifically permitting, those are exclusively staying with the Department of Health. The Department of Health is responsible for the septic tank permitting under the state statute 381, and under Florida Administrative Code, Chapter 64E-6. And here the legislative intent is for septic tank to be only used where sewer is not available. And the authority of the health department is limited by flow. So if a domestic flow is a 10,000 gallon per day monthly average, or 20,000 gallons single day, or less, then the Department of Health is in charge of the permitting. And also for commercial wastewater, they're limited by a 5,000 per gallon, 5,000 gallon per day monthly average daily flow, or 10,000 gallons single day. Those are the limitations that keep the program under the Department of Health. Now, if a system is to exceed these limitations, then an applicant can request of the Department of Health for a variance to stay with the Department of Health as the agency in charge of it. And then the Department of Health will coordinate with EPC and DEP for review and comments if that's okay. And neither agency will transfer jurisdiction of any system without the other agency's prior acceptance or written concurrence of the receiving agency. In Hillsborough County, currently, we do not have any permits issued for disposal of wastewater via a septic tank or drain field. Now, here is just a pictorial to show a septic tank system, the first picture, which is typically a small system serving a single residence or small establishment. It also contains small flows and does not allow for offsite discharge. The second picture is a package plant where EPC and DEP are the regulatory agencies in charge of. Those typically are for large flows. There are multiple parcels or small communities connecting to it, and it's more involved treatment. Now, once a septic tank system is permitted by the health department and in place, here comes compliance issues. Once installed, and as long as there are no failures or modification to the sewage flow, there will be no further compliance inspections or monitoring of the system. If there are issues, then the compliance response as follows. Issues of failing septic tank that do not discharge to surface waters are always under the Department of Health jurisdiction. They respond to it and they affect compliance. Issues with septic tanks discharging wastewater off-site and into surface waters, that's where EPC comes in and assists the Department of Health by taking action, compliance enforcement, and then affect compliance and returning the system into compliance. And always these complaints are coordinated with each of the agencies under the EPC and Department of Health MOU that we operate under. In the last year, EPC received 26 complaints involving septic tank discharges, 15 of which only involved allegations or confirmed surface water discharge, and we took action to rectify those situations. Now remember, nearly 1/3 of the state of Florida population is served by septic tanks. We have about 2.5 million septic systems in the state of Florida. And not all septic systems are bad systems. In fact, a lot of them are good. If sited properly, constructed properly, and well maintained, septic tank systems are a good thing. But of course, there are instances where septic tanks can underperform or even fail. These things happen when local conditions prevent proper operation. Also, if septic systems are located in the coastal, near water bodies or high groundwater table areas, or if they are in flood-prone areas, then you will have problems. And also some system where you have elevated drain field and have power outages, that could cause the pump system to fail, and thus you have problems. Septic system can also underperform or fail if they're hydraulically overloaded, too much flow, an undersized system that cannot handle the volume. Also, failure to maintain the septic system is a big problem. If a tank is not pumped regularly, if plant roots invade drain fields, if vehicles are parked on drain fields crushing the pipes, that could cause a problem. Obviously, complaints arise when a failure is obvious. And one sure thing about septic tanks, they tend to let you know pretty quick if there is a problem. If you have flooded front yard with sewage or blocked up toilets, you would know immediately. Here are a few photos showing failed septic tanks with standing wastewater on the surface. They tend to really have obnoxious odors in there. The state of Florida has been grappling with septic tank pollution issues for a while. So the Department of Health, in addressing septic tank contribution to pollution, back in 2009, they initiated the Florida On-Site Sewage Nitrogen Reduction Strategies. And that project, they had a report issued in 2015. It included a pilot testing of a passive or advanced nitrogen reduction system that achieves high nitrogen removal rates and has media that would last up to 50 years. But the costs are high compared to conventional systems. It could be up to 3 times higher, more expensive than a conventional system. Also addressing septic tank by the Health Department, in early 2019, the Department of Health adjusted its rules to include technology advances. It deals with technical changes to the design of alternative systems that would allow for more advanced system to remove and reduce nitrogen. These changes will allow for the installation of systems meeting the Department of Environmental Protection, FDEP, nitrogen reduction goals pursuant to the Florida Springs and Aquifer Protection Act of 2016. And such advanced system also would require somebody to check on these systems and monitor and operate those systems, because a little bit more advanced, they require more oversight. Here is a very telling graph and statistics for Hillsborough County. This is from the Department of Health data. Notice the chart. This talks about the total number of new septic tank applications, and the trajectory has been steadily declining. In fact, there's a sharp decrease between 1980 and 2020. Back in 1980 through 84, we had about 9,000 applications for septic tank installation. And it decreased all the way down to 2020. In the last year, the Department of Health received only 671, from 9,000 to about 671. That's a very stark decrease. And also in the last 12 months, the Department of Health received 671 permit applications and issued. In the last 12 months, the Department of Health had received 175 permit application for abandonment. In the last 12 months, the Department of Health had processed 848 repair permits for existing septic systems that require some kind of repairs. Here's a map of Hillsborough County. Again, this is from the Department of Health data. Notice that the brown and yellow area are sewer parcels, while the green are septic parcels, and the gray and pink, those are unknown parcels. Over 72% of parcels in the county are connected to sewer lines, but 13% of the parcels are on septic tanks, and about 14.8% of parcels are unknown. This means we don't have records of these, not in the database, or they were so old even before databases or record keeping was started. It doesn't mean they're not on anything, it's just the exact records are not available for those. Septic tank regulations are a state issue for authority. The legislature has looked into addressing it over the years. And recently, in 2016, the Florida Springs and Aquifer Protection Act has passed, and it says if septic is a major contributor of priority focus area, you have more septic failings in those priority areas, which are low-lying areas, high water table areas, or around springs, then the DEP must include remediation plans in their BMAPs, Basin Action Management Plans. There also calls for the enhanced septic system for new homes of less than 1 acre, or somebody need to upgrade or connect to a sewer system if they have a failing septic tank. In 2018, the Blue-Green Algae Task Force report issued recommendations that included septic tanks and other contributors of pollution to waters. For septic tanks, this Blue-Green Algae Task Force recommendation calls for the broader oversight of septic systems, including inspection and monitoring programs to identify failing septic systems and addressing those. That also calls for the adoption of rules prohibiting new septic systems in vulnerable areas unless enhanced systems are installed. And also recommends the acceleration of cost-effective septic to sewer programs where available. Now, earlier this year in the legislature, Senate Bill 712, proposed by Senator Mayfield, has passed, and it is given to the governor's office on June 16 to sign, and as of last night, we didn't see that it's signed yet. Hopefully it will be done before July 1st. This is a major step forward. This Senate bill, if approved, it calls for the transfer of septic tank system regulations and authority to DEP effective July 1st, 2021. It calls for the creation of a temporary technical task force within the DEP to work on technical issues and rulemaking. And it's temporary, it's for about 2 years until the regulations are in place. This bill requires the DEP to complete the rulemaking process for revising septic system setback requirements and location of septic tank siting requirements by July 1st of 2021. And where BMAPs, Basin Management Action Plans, determine that septic contribution of pollution is at least 20% or more, then the department is required to adopt remediation plans by July 1st, 2025. This bill also asks the department to flesh out through regulation and require local governments to reduce septic tank pollution. Also, the bill requires DEP to implement a fast-track approval process for people who are willing to install enhanced nutrient-reducing septic tanks. This will be fleshed out in the next 2 years, and we will have a more clear picture when rules are adopted. Now, the role of Hillsborough County. In Hillsborough County, the county utilities has proposed a conversion program, septic to sewer, and identify a prioritization area. The county had contracted with Hazen and Sawyer, the consulting firm, for the evaluation of septic tank in the urban service area. And the consultant has issued a report in 2018 identifying 120 septic tank communities within Hillsborough County urban service area, and also identifies 26,000 unsewered single-family parcels in the urban service area. The report developed ranking system for prioritization, which included the cost and environmental benefits. And as far as cost for connection, so the initial funding proposed was $10 million per year in total. The cost is about $25,000 per home to connect. It also proposes that 60-40 split with homeowners to a maximum cost of $12,000 for a homeowner. And with that, it estimates 52 years to connect all 26,000 tanks today by doing about connecting 500 septic tanks per year if funding is available. In addressing septic tank contribution to pollution, EPC's role always has to provide monitoring. We collect surface water samples in over 280 tributaries and locations on a quarterly basis, in addition to Bay samples, and we review all the data for high bacteria and nutrients to establish trends and hotspots. We also partner with the Department of Environmental Protection and Hillsborough County in the Basin Management Action Plans, including in-field investigation to address pollution sources. We encourage and fund studies. We support several advanced bacteria source tracking studies, such as the recent one on Bullfrog Creek and Sweetwater Creek by USF through the PRF grant. And as I stated before, EPC staff responds to complaints of septic tank system overflows to surface water. In summary, the Department of Health is in charge by state law in the permitting of septic systems, permitting compliant septic systems in Hillsborough County, including their recent rule modification to allow for more advanced system to be in place. The county utilities addresses the existing septic system through their proposed conversion program, but this would take some time and it's fund dependent to act on it. The EPC responds to septic tank overflow complaints in accordance with the MOU with the Health Department and takes enforcement action where needed. And the recent legislation asked the Department of Health and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to implement this major change and transfer of power, and allows for a rulemaking to flesh out the new requirements. And with that, I would like to recognize and thank George Cassidy of Hillsborough County and Brian Miller of the Department of Health, who both are present with us today and available to answer any questions. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. El Rabi, for a very thorough presentation on septic systems and the law. And we do have county staff on the call as well, if anybody has any questions. I see a hand raised. Commissioner Merman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. And Sam, that was an unbelievable presentation, very comprehensive, as I have advocated for septic to sewer for quite a while, as I have quite a bit in my district. I think the good thing about this, there is a good news to this, because if you look at 52 years, that's not good news. And George and I have spoken about this, that we can't afford to wait that long. Because now with that new bill, I think what it does is it really gets it firmly planted in the radar of the legislature. And they know they're going to have a responsibility to help in the cleanup, help local governments with cleanup and also with conversion. And so I am happy about the bill, because, of course, I think we would have liked to have seen, them go ahead and allocate millions of dollars to help us. But this is the first step. And knowing the process and how it works, now this is there. I think moving it to DEP was so appropriate. I mean, just going through this virus with the Department of Health, I can tell you they are overwhelmed and overloaded. And so I think this was very appropriate. It's an environmental issue, and it should have always been with DEP. So I know Commissioner Smith and I share the same concerns over septic to sewer, and we want to see it move forward a little bit faster than 52 years. But I am holding out hope now that that probably will happen and the state will help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Merman. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right now?
Perfectly.
Okay. Great. Thank you. I guess we fixed whatever it was. First off, I'd like to thank our staff, Mr. Al-Rabi, George Cassidy, for working on this and presenting such a comprehensive oversight. I've been asking for this for several years since I first worked, as you know, Mr. Cassidy and Mr. Al-Rabi, on getting limiting any more land application of septage in Hillsborough County. And we really shut down that very bad practice with a couple exceptions, and hopefully those will move away in the future. Really bad news for Hillsborough County when we had those, and we have very limited land application going on now. Second, I had heard, so I was a little surprised and actually pleased to hear, I know it sounds daunting, but that we have 26,000 unsewered places in the urban service area. So I thought that number was much higher. To me, that is good news. That's correct, because I'd heard before 125,000, though it wasn't distinguished between the urban service area and the rural service area. Do we have 125,000 still? I know I'm not concerned about changing that in the rural service area, or was that estimate just way very high in the beginning?
No, Commissioner, that estimate is accurate. There's about 125,000, give or take, in the entire county.
Okay, so we do have about 100,000 in the rural service area, I guess. That's interesting. And 26,000 unsewered, and we also have, of course, our as Commissioner Smith well knows, our low pressure sewer systems that are so substandard that we also have to deal with in both Ruskin, as you know, as when I was an aide for Kathy Castor at the county, that we were dealing with back in 2004, and nothing had been done. Still nothing substantial has been done to this point, but hopefully we will deal with that issue as well and start to work on that. Certainly 50 years is too long, because this isn't just a serious pollution issue, but it's also a serious economic development issue. It's a serious issue in terms of bringing density into the urban service area and changing the picture of how Hillsborough County has developed. And bad on us that it's gone on for this long without substantial attention to it, and good on us that we now have a big picture here, because it's a first step, I think, to working on changing things. I certainly want to see, I was also very interested in seeing the 60-40 split between homeowners and the county in terms of remedying this, or public dollars. I'm not sure exactly how they'll come, but we really, I think, for all reasons of creating a future in Hillsborough County that not only doesn't pollute and doesn't seriously endanger our lovely bay and waters, but also to bring about the kind of economic development and the kind of density in communities that we need. This is utterly and absolutely fundamental that we deal with our septage and our sewer and septic systems. As amazing as that is, it's really step number one. We talk about our roads, it's because we see them. We don't see this system that underpins our entire community and is so important. So I'm glad that we're starting to finally bring attention to remedying what has been a bad problem, and outlining this is really, really basic to seeing how to move. And I know, Mr. Cassidy, you had said that there's really some low-hanging fruit in terms of this, neighborhoods that would be very easy to do, maybe less than the usual cost, because they're in the middle of places that are sewered. So they would be kind of low-hanging fruit in terms of opportunity of number of feet and costs to do those. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner. There definitely are some of these communities that are probably easier to access and convert than others. If you look at the entire study that Hazen and Sawyer performed for us, we identified 120 discrete neighborhoods that were septic communities from the very beginning. And so of those are all prioritized. The top, the top 10 or 20 are the ones that we would approach first. And we think they would be, good starting places.
Great. Well, I'm very excited about moving forward on this. It's extraordinarily important for all the reasons that we talked about, and I'm really pleased to see this overview. I've been anxious to see this for quite a while. So thank you so much, and I am ready to move forward. And yes, we need to get a timeline that isn't 52 years long. We've waited too long already, so it's time for us to move forward in a better way.
Thank you. And Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you, and I'll make this quick. Sam, I thank you very much for your report. It was very thorough. You mentioned in the last slide, I believe it was, or the next to last slide, that the EPC has an MOU with the Department of Health. And under the previous arrangement, that seems normal. Will you need MOU with the Florida DEP for functioning in a similar manner, or for sharing of information or responsibilities?
I presume when the DEP takes over in the next couple of years, they will reach out to local governments that have environmental programs, and they will be relying heavily on them to respond to complaints and to assist in IDing and also monitoring hot areas if need be. Yes, that thing need to be renegotiated or looked at, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, that's my concern. I think it would be important to recognize what that relationship looks like, and I anticipate you'll be bringing something back to us as that situation evolves. Thank you very much. That was my answer to my question.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see no other hands raised. I'll just close by saying thank you very much for a very thorough report. I'm really happy to see so much enthusiasm in our staff, our water utility staff, our EPC staff, and among our commissioners for addressing this. It's not a fun topic, a sexy topic, but it is a very important topic. And I think a priority, it's clear from this presentation, a priority needs to be converting the septic communities that are near our water bodies. As you saw from the septic systems that fail, the slide that had the 3 houses on it, and the ones that are lowest near the water table when we have rain events saturating the ground time after time, more and more frequently now. Those are the septic systems that fail. And if they are like the ones in Gibsonton on Bullfrog Creek and draining into Tampa Bay, that becomes an environmental issue. If they are in Ruskin or Waimama, draining into the upper water basin or the lower water basin of the Little Manatee River, that is a environmental issue, draining toxic, bacteria-laden septic sewage into waters where children swim and people fish and people eat the fish they catch. So, a key to that conversion is also converting the low pressure system that we have in Ruskin and Waimama, which Commissioner Kemp remembers is a big detriment. It has been an issue for a long, long time in developing the Ruskin town center and attracting businesses there, is getting off of that low pressure sewer system. But also when you talk about homeowners, convincing homeowners to switch to the county system, if the county system is that Rube Goldberg contraption of a low pressure sewer system that fails every time your electric goes out, it costs tens of thousands of dollars. That also costs the county $26,000 to hook you up, and costs the homeowner several $1,000s to hook up. Well, that's not an attractive option. So if we're going to convert those people to regular, if we're going to get them off of old septic tanks, impacting our water system, we need to make the alternative attractive, and so that's a piece of that. My goodness, 120 septic tank communities and 26,000 unsewered within the urban service area in a county our size in 2021 is unacceptable. We need to move into, the modern era and provide sanitary sewer for our citizens. So I'm glad that everybody is, and I know Commissioner Merman has been taking that very seriously at every turn, and I'm glad to hear that we have a unified voice to move forward as quickly as possible on all of that. And seeing no further discussion on that, just thanks to everybody for participating on that one, and we'll move to the Executive Director's report. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Commissioner. Our last meeting, let me make sure is my mic on? I can't see.
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Thank you, Commissioner. I couldn't see it at the moment. I had to scroll over it. If James Brewer will bring up my slides, thank you so much. We haven't met since prior to March, and so I will get through these slides as quickly as possible. The next slide, James. 2020 has been a year like no other, a year of unprecedented change. No one could have foreseen the challenges the world would face with the onset of the coronavirus outbreak and the large-scale disruptions that this caused. We sincerely appreciate the work of the Emergency Policy Group and especially your leadership, Commissioner Miller, during these difficult and troubled days. I would like to assure the commissioners that our commitment to the agency's mission, vision, and values has remained steadfast. EPC took immediate action to modify our intake and review procedures. This allowed us to maintain normal lobby hours while minimizing exposure risks and ensuring the safety of our staff and the public. Our ability to adapt so quickly ensured that there was no interruption of permitting and compliance activities. Additionally, MIS staff spent many long hours supplementing and expanding the necessary technical equipment and systems required to get all EPC staff fully functioning remotely from their homes. This was accomplished in an impressive short amount of time, and I'd like to give all of the MIS staff a shout out. As a result, field staff continued their work with minimal disruption, completing timely facility inspections, complaint investigations, and database entries. Air monitoring and data collection continued without interruption, and while our lab activities were scaled back temporarily, full water sampling and lab analysis resumed on June 1st. I wish to thank all EPC staff for being flexible and for the outstanding work they continue to perform in the field, from home, and in our office. I appreciate your support, commissioners, which enabled EPC to keep our mission at the forefront of all we do and every decision we make. You have my guarantee that EPC will continue to face each new challenge head on, especially during these uncertain times, and that we continue to provide environmental excellence in a changing world. Next slide, please. EPC senior leadership staff held our mid-year strategic planning session last week. This is the time we set aside to evaluate EPC's progress towards meeting our agency goals and to ensure that our actions align with achieving intended outcomes. We plan to present an official strategic planning update for your review and input in January or February of next year. Next slide. During the month of May, I met with Sun Radio. This is a radio service that educates and informs the Sun City residents, and we discussed what EPC does and our role in the community, and the program will air in August. Next slide, please. Since our last commission meeting, EPC had the opportunity to participate in the Strawberry Festival Parade activities in March. This was our last outreach activity. Commissioner White's lovely daughter, Megan, was presented as the reigning Strawberry Festival Queen this year. Commissioner White, I heard that you were more nervous than Megan leading up to the announcement, and I know you and Barb are very proud of her accomplishments. Congratulations. Next slide, please. We continued our commitment to handling our sustainable environmentally friendly items during the past parade by handing out seeds and not beads. This year, we found a supplier of native seed varieties. The seeds were well received by the crowd and the parade judges. Next slide, please. It was our pleasure for us to host a tour of EPC for USF students Sam Rechek, intern for Commissioner Merman, majoring in political science and philosophy, and Bryce Connolly, intern for Commissioner White, majoring in international studies. We wish them both well in their future endeavors. Next slide, please. Shortly after the stay-at-home order was issued in March, our annual outreach events, including EcoFest, EPC's Clean Air Fair, and wetland walks were canceled. April 22nd marked the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and April 24th was National Arbor Day. In response, EPC launched a virtual campaign urging residents to stay green at home. The campaign sought to bring awareness to the public that we don't have to go far to help the environment. We can start in our homes and in our own neighborhoods. As you saw earlier, the 50th Earth Day birthday was to have served as our Clean Air Fair theme. We look forward to our future and hope next year we'll be able to bring the Clean Air Fair back bigger and better than ever. Next slide, please. Our wetland staff worked very hard during the entire month of May, which is American Wetlands Month, to bring the beauty of Hillsborough County's wetlands into the homes of residents. The EPC Wetland Tour series presented weekly news articles and informative daily posts highlighting the different ecosystems and details about the plants and animals found at our 4 featured county parks. I appreciate our talented staff for thinking outside of the box to make this a successful wetland month, even though the public walks were canceled. Next slide, please. We wanted to, again, give our farewell and best wishes to Administrator Mike Merrill. Mike has been with the county since 1988 and retires with more than 30 years of service. Mike has 2 dogs, Augie and Suni, a cat named Abby, and I'm not quite sure what his parrot's name is. In 2010, he took over as interim administrator of animal services. Mike championed changing the facility's name to the Pet Resource Center to better reflect its mission, and currently today it bears his name as well. Today, the PRC saves more than 91% of animals brought to the shelter, up from 35% since he took over. Mike has done so much for the EOC, the EPG, affordable housing, Well for Life, the residents of Hillsborough County, and employees. But we want to personally thank him again for his commitment and support to our agency and our employees. We hosted a Microsoft Teams call with Mike, and he had many things to share with us, but I'll just share two things that he told us. The first was the hard part is figuring out what to do next. And I know you're on your way to figuring that out, Mike. He said not to work too hard figuring it out, but just to let it happen. He is a servant leader, and he attributes his success to having really good influences and teachers in his life. For anyone, if you can find good teachers and people who care about you and stick with it, that can make the biggest difference in your lives. And those are some words of wisdom from Administrator Merrill. We will miss you, and we hope you keep in touch. Thank you. Next slide, please. And finally, I have known Bonnie Wise from her career with the city of Tampa, as well as Hillsborough County. I wanted to take a moment to welcome Bonnie Weiss in her new role as county administrator. I know she's going to do an amazing job, and I look forward to working with her closely. When we get through this new normal, Bonnie, I hope personally that I can learn, and maybe you can teach me Mahjong, if I said that correctly, because I've always wanted to learn that. And finally, with this last slide, our next scheduled EPC meeting is Thursday, August 13th. Thank you for your time. And again, a special shout out to your communications staff for working with us to make this virtual meeting possible. Mr. Brewer, Mr. McElroy, Mr. Hogue, all of your staff, you've done a wonderful job Thank you so much. And this concludes my report and our meeting for today.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. That's a great report. It's been a while since we've been able to meet. And so we had a lot to go through, but EPC has certainly been very busy, even grappling with COVID. The last item on our agenda, I see no discussion of the director's report. The last item on our agenda is future items, and because we've had to postpone our meetings for a little while, that we've got a little bit of a backlog of requested items, but they will be coming. I know Commissioners Kemp and Overman have requested air quality impacts of the highways and interstates, a presentation on that to be brought forward, and I'm looking forward to the presentation on McDill and their environmental areas. Ms. Doherty, anything else coming up or any comment on those items in the queue?
No, Commissioner. Obviously, as we move through the summer season and into the fall, we will be doing our annual we'll be giving you our annual report. And so that usually comes in September or October as well, and briefing you on our measures and our metrics and our transparency and accountability. So with that, whatever the pleasure of the board is, if you have any topics, feel free to discuss them now. You have my cell phone. Please feel free to give me a call and we'll run it by the chairman, and at future meetings, we'll bring them up. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I see no hands raised for future items. And so at this point then, as we adjourn this meeting, we will be handing it over. We'll be staying here, switching hats and transitioning to the BOCC County Commission, and Commissioner Miller will be chairing that. So with that, this meeting of the EPC is adjourned, and thank you all.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Mr. Brewer?
Yes, sir.
We're going to go ahead and start the special meeting this morning.
Understood. BOCC members, you are going to remain live. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to order. The purpose of the special meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to approve an ordinance draft providing individuals in Hillsborough County with the right to wear face coverings with certain exceptions to be codified in the Hillsborough County Code of Ordinance, authorize advertising and scheduling a public hearing for July 15, 2020, and Commissioner Overman's request to consider and approve a resolution regarding entry and safety protocols for public areas of county properties, parks, and buildings under the county administrator. Ms. Wise on the call?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Is there anything you'd like to bring forward, Ms. Wise?
I would just like to thank you all, and this is going to be our first special meeting, and we had those two agenda items as you discussed.
Okay. Commissioner Overman, is there anything you'd like to say before I bring up the open public comment?
No, sir. Please bring public comment forward, and then we can address the item afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving to public comment. First speaker is Jeffrey. Pardon me?
Could I do another roll call for the new meeting?
I'm sorry. Roll call. Yes.
Miller?
Here.
Hagan?
Here.
Kemp?
Here.
Merman?
Here.
Overman?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
White?
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Moving to public comment, our first speaker is Jeffrey Bogie.
Yes, good morning to all of you. My name is Jeff Bogie. My father and I built Brandon Crossroads Pool in 1990. Then my two sisters joined my father and I in building the Elliott South Shore in 2008. I've seen many of you in our centers over the years. My employees are in the front lines working in these difficult times already. Both centers have managed to crawl their way back, doing between 65 and 70% of their normal revenues for this time of the year. We are still losing money, but hope is on the horizon. Both centers experienced the same thing last night. League bowlers were brought up to speed with the new ordinance and told that they must wear face masks at all times other than when they are sitting at the table eating or drinking, physically up to bowl while maintaining social distance, or unless they had an existing medical condition. Between 8 and 10% of the league bowlers last night simply quit the league and left. By the third game of the league, at least half of the remaining league had removed their masks despite us asking them to wear them. Open bowling was the slowest it's been since we've reopened. People said they simply would not bowl in a face mask. It impaired their ability to breathe and causes glasses to fog up while they are looking at the pins and getting ready to throw their ball. My staff had to deal with several customers that became irate last night over them asking them to wear face masks. One person even broke a pool stick in front of the bartender and tossed it at her, cussing her out. This mandate must be corrected. My employees should not be put in the position of becoming the law enforcement agents, putting them in potentially dangerous situations. My family should not be in the position of being criminally charged with the crimes of people that they cannot and do not have that level of control over. We do accept accountability for our staff, and we have and will continue to mandate that they wear face masks. This we can control. Several Tuesdays ago, there was threats of a mass protest on Highway 301 and Big Bend Road right in front of the Elliott South Shore. This resulted in the police needing to blockade all access to my business for the evening, and we were forced to close, losing $8,000 that evening alone due to this closing. My family has been an active part of the community for over 30 years. We are proud of the culture of racial diversity and sense of community that we have fostered over the years. We have been and continue to be philanthropists for countless charities, Toys for Tots, Special Olympics, and Bowlers to Veterans Link. Please do not keep piling more and more of the burdens on already struggling small businesses. Please allow my family and our centers to survive and continue being the valuable assets that they are to this community. Thank you.
Debbie Boji.
Yes, good morning. My name is Deborah Boget, and I'm too here this morning speaking on behalf of our family bowling centers, Brandon Crossroads Bowl and the Alley at South Shore, and countless other businesses that have called me expressing the same concern. I do share your concern regarding the resurgence of COVID-19. I do not disagree with the conclusion that wearing face masks in all probability will curb the increase in number of cases. My concern lies with the manner in which this mandate imposes the responsibility for enforcement. To make businesses affected by COVID-19 bear the responsibility to enforce the wearing of face masks or be subject to criminal prosecution is too much to ask from us. My family and our employees should not be required to put our lives and safety in danger. Just last month, a Michigan security guard at Family Dollar was shot and killed for simply requesting a customer to wear a face mask in compliance with the governor's then executive order. A quick Google search will reveal countless reports of employees being spat upon and attacked for making the simple request to wear a face mask. You may say, well, they should call law enforcement, but by the time law enforcement can be called and respond, it's too late. The injury has already happened, or in the worst case, for the poor man in Michigan, he's already dead. Surely this commission recognizes the hardship that the enforcement requirement places on businesses, as the board conveniently exempted out government agencies, nonprofits, and schools from enforcement. Surely the virus is not less contagious in these settings. Matter of fact, as we recently learned this morning, the government agency that is the hotline had to shut down. So obviously it's not appropriately distancing within its own agency, but yet they're not subject to these criminal prosecutions. The end cannot justify the means. No other surrounding municipality or county is opposing criminal liability on business owners. We are willing to take responsibility for our own employees wearing face masks. And we're willing to put up signs to advise customers that they need to wear face masks. But individual citizens need to be held accountable for their own actions. Businesses should not be put in the position of being law enforcement. Please, on behalf of the business owners in Hillsborough County, I implore upon you to revise this order and remove the requirement that puts the burden on businesses to enforce compliance with this mandate. Thank you.
Kaylee Groff. Kaylee Groff.
Commissioner, she is on but not responding.
Okay. Give her one more chance. Kaylee Groff.
Probably on mute.
Okay. We're now moving to board discussion. Commissioner Overman, you want to start your discussion?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. To address some of the concerns we heard earlier, but this ordinance, this issue that we're talking about today, does not mandate in any way the use of face coverings. That mandate was created by the executive order that was passed at the Emergency Policy Group on Monday. There may be concern that this ordinance will confuse the messaging, but that was not my intent. This ordinance would permit residents, many with pre-existing health issues or related relatives with health issues, the right to continue wearing masks or face coverings without being impeded or harassed. At the EPG meeting, we have heard many, many experts, including Surgeon General Rifkes, Dr. Holt from our Florida Department of Health, USF Dean Lockwood, and Dr. Jason Wilson, who we reappointed to our Healthcare Advisory Board last week on the benefits of wearing face coverings to combat the community spread that we are currently experiencing in Hillsborough County. The Healthcare Advisory Board voted unanimously to recommend the wearing of face coverings. Face coverings are one of the recommended public health tools, such as avoiding large crowds, social distancing, good hygiene practices that help reduce viral transmission. This ordinance employs civil penalty provisions that focus on voluntary compliance through education and warnings by code enforcement officers, and was purposely written as such to direct enforcement away from our overburdened law enforcement agencies and to focus on civil rather than criminal penalties. The civil penalties are progressive in nature and begin with strictly education and a warning notice. The second and third violations carry civil citations. It takes 4 violations to escalate before someone would be required to show up in front of a judge. Any action by the BOCC would require a public hearing, which would allow our constituents the opportunity to be heard. Unfortunately, we live in a society where bully behavior is prevalent. And the last place it should rear its ugly head is during a public health emergency that has created an economic crisis. But given that it's where we are, it has become evident that we have the responsibility and opportunity to protect residents that have risk factors, and the proposed ordinance would assure them the right to protect their health, allowing them to wear a face covering without being impeded or harassed. As I move approval of the ordinance draft, providing individuals in Hillsborough County the right to wear face coverings with certain exceptions to be codified in the Hillsborough County Code of Ordinances, and direct staff to schedule and advertise a public hearing for July 15th, 2020 at 10 a.m.
Commissioner Kemp seconds.
There's a motion by Commissioner Overman, second by Commissioner Kemp. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion?
No, sir.
I see no hands. Please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
No.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner White voted no.
Okay. Is there anything further on that subject? Anything further on that subject?
No, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith, I see your hand.
Sorry, all I would say is thank you very much to Commissioner Overman, Commissioner Miller, all the commissioners who have courageously led on the issue of trying to keep our citizens safe. We, this one and the next one, we understand the science is in, and we have to do what we can to protect our citizens. It is a tough call politically these days, and I appreciate your courage and your leadership.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
I'll be fast, but I'll say the same thing. Thank you, both Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Overman, for bringing this forward. I think this is a public health issue, a public health emergency. There's nothing we can do more in this crisis and spiking. Nothing we can do more to protect ourselves and to protect others and to wear a mask and use social distancing and make sure it's done. And I just implore everyone in our community to do so that we can start to be safe, begin to recover, and start to get out of this terrible place where we are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on, you all received an email yesterday from Mr. Brandon Wagner concerning seeking a volunteer to serve on the Florida Association Board of Directors for our District 18. That's a seat that I held for a number of years, and I didn't run this year because I'm terminated in November, but we did not get anyone from this commission to volunteer to serve. It's a 2-year term. This district covers all of Hillsborough County. Others will share other parts of our surrounding counties, but this one serves only Hillsborough County. The chair of the Florida Association of Counties asked me to make a recommendation. If I don't, then they're going to make the recommendation. I would prefer that we do it here. So I'm going to ask, is there anyone that would like to serve as on the board of directors of the Florida Association of Counties representing District 18? Is there anyone?
I'm willing to do so. Commissioner Kemp?
I see Commissioner Hagan's hand. Commissioner Hagan, would you volunteer also?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to serve as on the board for a number of years, and I'm happy to do it again. I usually attend the FAC meetings anyway, so just happy to do it.
Okay. Now we have Commissioner Hagan has volunteered and Commissioner Kemp has volunteered. Is there anyone else that will wish to volunteer? Seeing that, I can only recommend one person. We have 2 people that would like to volunteer.
I'll defer to Commissioner Hagan.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Kemp. So Commissioner Hagan Commissioner Kemp is deferred. So Commissioner Hagan will submit your name as on the board of directors of District 18. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Kemp.
Is there anything else to come before us this morning?
Yes.
Yes.
Not other than what's on the agenda. I'm sorry.
What else is on the agenda?
Commissioner, we have the second item on the agenda.
What's the second item?
Commissioner Overman's request to consider and approve a resolution regarding entry and safety protocols for public areas of county properties, parks, and buildings under the county administrator.
I'm sorry. You're right. Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. This item is, I think, important that we also set the stage for taking a lead. While my name is attached to it, I bring it out of respect for the care and concern of Mike Merrill for our county employee team and citizens, and to make sure that Ms. Wise has the ability to make our best wishes for our employees safe. During the discussion at Monday's EPG meeting, Mr. Merrill voiced his concern for the safety and wellness and well-being of our county employees and requested that language be included in the emergency policy executive order to allow the county administrator the authority to set entry and safety protocols for public areas for county parks, buildings, and properties. Rather than delay the passage of the order, and upon recommendation from Ms. Back, he withdrew his request and asked that this item be considered by the BOCC at this special meeting. I thank you for considering his request. I too share his concerns for our employees and strongly believe that the community is looking for its leaders to lead by example. With the passage of this resolution, the county can be aligned with the emergency policy order that was passed and follow the same orders that our businesses must follow. Thus, I move to approve the resolution as submitted in the backup materials, authorizing the county administrator, consistent with the administrator's executive responsibilities, to establish and implement entry and safety protocols for all persons entering county properties, parks, and buildings, effective immediately.
Commissioner Kemp seconds.
That's a motion by Commissioner Overman, second by Commissioner Kemp. See some hands. Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Hagan, you recognize.
Yeah, I would just like to make a comment after we pass this motion. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
Thank you. You know, the science is in, and we now know that if 80% of people in our community wear masks, we could reduce the spread of COVID to 8.3%, 1/12 of what it is now. And it's very important that as we ask our community to try to help out as much as people can with the mask wearing in order to stop and slow the spread of COVID in our community and take care of each other. It's really important that we do the same thing in our public buildings and our public parks. If we are ever going to open again for public hearings and public meetings, we will absolutely need to be providing a safe environment. And a key to that is well established now is requiring everyone to wear masks indoors. Indoors is where the spread is the worst, and where, you know, it's really important that we're all wearing masks. So I'm glad that we are able to put this on this agenda today so we can have the hearing, public hearing in a timely manner, and hope that we can pass this protection for our employees and the public citizens who want to enjoy our and participate in our public spaces safely.
Commissioner White, you recognize.
Thank you. I can understand what a safety protocol would look like for entering indoor spaces or even recreational parks, but I'd like to ask staff what the protocol might look like for our large regional parks and our nature preserves.
Who would like to answer that?
I
Go
can
ahead, Ms.
start with that. This is Bonnie Weiss.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. And we do have other staff on the call as well who could possibly answer to me, because we have had a committee. Certainly the protocol for entering into a building such as County Center and into a regional park would have to be different, and we would have to consider that. So I would say that for something like a regional park, as Commissioner White mentioned, I think it would really be more the social distancing that we would want to adhere to, rather than the strict protocols of entering a closed facility.
And a follow-up question for staff. We have a lot of parks in this county, recreational parks, regional parks, and our nature preserves. Do we have the staffing to manage these sorts of protocols at all those facilities?
Certainly, what we want to do is for people to comply. We do not necessarily have the ability to police such an endeavor, whether it's code enforcement or law enforcement. So that would certainly be a concern that we would have on the monitoring of that.
Okay. And if I understand this item correctly, is this a first reading or is this an adoption?
Commissioner White, this is Christine. This would be an adoption. It's just approving a resolution. There isn't a public hearing associated with this item.
Okay. I just want to say for the record that I'm not going to be able to support this item if it's going to include every single county facility. I think it's unnecessary for our outdoor facilities like our parks. And I think we're kidding ourselves to even begin to think that we have the staffing available to actually properly carry this out. So I won't be able to support it for that reason.
Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to thank Commissioner Overman for bringing this forward. As you, Commissioner White, I would share the concern about our open areas, but I felt like Ms. Wise addressed that, I see, as Commissioner Smith mentioned, the masks are important indoors and not outdoors. But I'd like to say that more than anything, if we're going to require the community to do so, certainly, we should be protecting our own employees and staff and people that enter our buildings, and we should be the shining example for how it's done. So I absolutely think this is extremely important. Again, we've already had now our own incident with this. We need to keep everyone safe. We need to be the example. We need to lead the way, as well as put these requirements on the community, because we have got to get back to a place where it is safer, where we're not experiencing spikes, people in ICU, people dying, and businesses having to shut down in this terrible place that we're in right now. This will help in. This is the best public health measure we can take to bring us back to a place that's safe and healthy.
Commissioner Merman, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a question for Ms. Christine Beck. Our current policy exempts outdoor activities. Wouldn't that apply to this, or wouldn't this conflict with the this resolution?
No, Commissioner, this is Christine. The resolution has some built-in flexibility, and I do not see any conflict with the EPG order, which is mandating it for businesses. But certainly the resolution can be read to harmonize with the EPG order if that became necessary.
May I have a follow-up? I think that Okay, so the mask are for indoor. And I understand, Commissioner, why I really do. I get to what you're saying. I was over in Pinellas County and visited one of their parks, and they don't have police riding around checking people, but they do have signs everywhere. And I know that I think it's more the social distancing that we would want to advocate for and get our citizens to comply with when they go to our parks. And I don't think that that's an unreasonable ask going forward. And I don't think it's going to be very difficult to, for our staff at all. I kind of checked into that. So anyway, I'm going to be supporting it. Mr. Mel brought it up at the EPG, and we discussed it there, and we thought it was appropriate.
Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
Thank you. And I completely understand what Commissioner White is getting at. But as I read this, I think that it is flexible enough to address his concerns. It says that we are authorized, what we're doing here would be authorizing the county administrator, consistent with their responsibilities, to establish and implement entry and safety protocols for the general public and employees, which are intended to reduce the transmission of COVID. And it says entry and safety protocols may include the requirement to wear face coverings and masks and other things, conducting temperature. But I would think that, the county administrator, and I'll ask Ms. Wise to address this, but I would think the county administrator would be working with the Parks and Conservation Department on our parks. And I think that we really need to have this much flexibility, because each park and preserve is we have a wide range of situations. So, for example, at the very beginning of the pandemic, Lettuce Lake Park had to be closed because people couldn't maintain the social distancing, or weren't maintaining the social distancing there. Little tiny Apollo Beach Park, people weren't maintaining the social distancing. But I would imagine that if we post, and that's because you have situations like at Lettuce Lake, you have a boardwalk that is 4 feet wide, and you have that tower. If you have an awful lot of people on that, they can't do the social distancing. But I imagine if you had policies saying masks are required in our outdoor parks and preserves on ELAP land, we're going for a 7-mile hike somewhere, the sign would say social distancing is required, and if you can't maintain social distancing, then you would want to encourage mask wearing. But maybe on something like Lettuce Lake, the signs would say, please maintain social distancing. If social distancing can't be maintained on the boardwalk, you are required to wear a mask in those situations. So if it gets really crowded, you would be having to wear a mask. And I think it's important that we have that flexibility. But as I read this ordinance, we would be giving that to the administrator to work with parks to provide for keeping people safe, which may include wearing masks, may defer to social distancing where appropriate. And as far as the enforcement not being total, I would just say we can't get total enforcement on not keeping your dog on a leash on ELAP land. I mean, we can't expect total enforcement, but the best we can do is convey to people what is best practices in a way that puts some teeth with it, so they know we're serious. It's not just encouraging, it's not just suggesting. this is what the rules are. And with that, I'll close and ask Ms. Wise to address that matter of flexibility between indoor and outdoor spaces and mask wearing when social distancing is impossible.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Perhaps I wasn't as clear as I intended to be. I did too want to mention that it said that entry and safety protocols may include certain options. And as you mentioned, certain options certainly vary in a park from a public building. The other thing I wanted to mention too is our idea is to limit the inconvenience to the public, certainly, but we do want to educate them, and we do want to provide the appropriate information for them. And then finally too, we have some major, what I'll call major tenants in some of our facilities, such as the courts. So we would certainly want to work with them as to what they are recommending too for their operations for the public access as well. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Okay. We're going in round two now. Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Great, and I appreciate the questions. I think it was important for us to understand what we're doing here, which is to authorize the county administrator to establish, and implement entry and safety protocols. We have a wide, diversified list of facilities and many partners, as Ms. Wise mentioned. Each one of these facilities have a different level of engagement with our citizens and a different level of circumstances that would allow for safety protocols to be adopted. So all this does is give our county administrator the responsibility of managing our facilities for safety. And I just want to add, I did have a very short conversation yesterday with Chief Justice Figueroa. And while they are, in a county building, they are one of our partners, and they are establishing protocols for how the courts will operate, and the face coverings, sounds like face coverings will be absolutely part of their process. So we have great partners in this. We have libraries that we do need to develop protocols for as they open. We have a variety of different types of facilities where situations are similar and other cases different. And this gives us the flexibility of allowing the county administrator to act quickly and implement safety protocols so that we don't have to do this, every 2 weeks or every week, like unfortunately we may need to argue about at the emergency policy group. So I encourage the support of this motion and to support the county administrator to be able to move forward on putting protocols in place for our employees. Thank you.
Commissioner White, you recognize.
Thank you. Well, although it may seem like it at times, I actually do not relish being the lone dissenter on some of these things. I would like to support this. I'll take a crack at an amendment that could get me to a place where I could support it. I don't know that the amendment will get a second, much less pass, but I'll take a crack at it. And that would be to offer an amendment that for any BOCC-controlled public facilities, that any entry protocols beyond signage would only apply to our indoor facilities.
Is there a second to the amendment? Is there a second to the amendment?
Can he repeat?
Amendment dies for lack of a second.
Oh.
Amendment dies for lack of a second.
Okay. I can unmute fast.
Okay. We are now back on the motion.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Point of order. It appears that Commissioner Merman was having issues with her mute button and was trying to say something during the process of asking for a second.
Well, I called for a second almost 3 times, Commissioner White, and didn't get an answer for anything.
I know.
I called for it almost 3 times. Usually you do it only twice. I did it almost 3 times.
I know, it's just unique. It's a unique situation because this is a virtual meeting. I just didn't know if you'd want to hear what Commissioner Merman was trying to say.
Well, Commissioner Merman, what were you trying to say?
I just want him to repeat his amendment so I could hear it. That's the issue. I guess I couldn't get to my unmute button fast enough, but I just wanted to hear his amendment again.
Okay. Commissioner White, I will withdraw the lack of the second and put it back on the table. Would you please restate your amendment?
Sure. So in the amendment, I said for any BOCC controlled county facility, which, would still give constitutional officers and the courts and everyone the ability to enact any protocols that they want. So it was that. And for any entry protocol above and beyond signage, would apply to only indoor facilities. So the spirit of it is that for regional parks, nature preserves, things like that, we could have all the signage that you've talked about, encouraging face masks and social distancing and whatnot. But any physical entry protocol like temperature checks and requiring face masks and things like that would only apply to entry into any indoor facility that's controlled by the BOCC.
Is there a second to the amendment? Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second it. I don't see a problem with it. I'll second.
Okay, we have amendment to the motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Merman. Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
I apologize, Chair. I forgot to take my hand down.
Okay, is there any further discussion to the amendment to the motion? Seeing none, call the roll, please. On the amendment.
Miller,
No.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
No.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
No.
Smith,
No.
White.
Yes.
Motion failed 3-4. Commissioners Miller, Kemp, Overman, and Smith voted no.
Yeah.
Now back on the motion by Commissioner Overman, second by Commissioner Kemp. Seeing no further discussion on that motion, please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
No.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner White voted no.
Commissioner Hagan, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be quick. I just want to make a quick comment only because we're not going to be meeting again for 3 weeks. I'm sure that all the board members are aware of the recent meltdown we've had with one of our solid waste carriers due to many employees testing positive for COVID-19. 51,000 houses have been affected over 3 days with this one carrier. Recycling's been suspended. And to make matters worse, customer service calls have been a nightmare. People have been on hold 15, 20 minutes only to get dropped. We're being inundated with emails and phone calls. And to me, this is just simply unacceptable. I mean, I know staff is working on it, but I want to ensure that the staff is being creative in addressing the problems here, and also need to have a plan should the other two carriers have similar issues. And so I'm going to have an agenda item for the next meeting asking for a service update and a plan on how we're going to address this issue. But just wanted to put it out there, get it on the record, and make sure that staff's doing everything they can to mitigate and to correct the problem that's happening out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hagan. Anyone from staff want to address that?
Chairman Miller, we will put that on the next agenda and also provide updates in between as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Merman, you recognize.
Thank you, and I'll make this brief. There's a lot of confusion out there about childcare facilities and children having to wear masks during their 8 and 9 hour stay in childcare facilities, which they do not have to wear masks. They are under the governor's order, but there is confusion. So I'm going to be bringing an item to clarify and clear up this confusion, and probably raise the age in the exemptions from age 2 to age 12. But just wanted to let everybody know, because there are several emails, I think, floating around out there. We are not going to be discussing the mask ordinance, as I understand from Mr. Chair, not until Monday. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
Okay. So I'll be bringing an amendment to the policy on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other hands. Members, you have received 2 ugly emails this morning that cut very deep and are very painful, especially to me. It's unfortunate. That's the sad circumstances of where we are in this county, in this state, in this country. If I can take the high road, I ask that you all take the high road. I think we all are here, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on, to work for the betterment of our people in this county. That's the oath we took. That's the oath we live by. So the deepness and the pain that hurts that comes, you probably can't feel it like me. But I just ask that you continue to take the high road. With that being said, we adjourn.
Thank you.